Hey you guys, it's your girl AP and welcome back to my channel. So I know that it's been a couple of weeks since I've been here with a chat here on my YouTube, although I have posted clips from me and hubby's podcast, the A&J podcast. So I hope you guys are checking them out. I know that the viewership looks really low on those videos. I mean, if you just want to show it some love, we could do that. So besides that, life has been a whirlwind, and I feel like that is like my very cliched but very apropos theme for what my life has been like these last few weeks. I'm in transition. Like, I'm breaking my office down because I'm having to move again. And maybe in a couple of weeks I'll be willing to share that story once we transition into our new house and get settled. But a lot has been going on. So today I'm going to just chat about like transitioning with and without grace. So as many of you guys know, I was on disability for about 3 years while I was grappling with my excess weight, the arthritis, and so on and so forth. And we all know I had weight loss surgery, blah, blah, blah. If you haven't seen that, run it back. And I went back to the workforce as of November, which was an adjustment, to say the least. It's different when you work for yourself versus working for somebody else. But it wasn't as bad as I anticipated that it was going to be. And in that process, I started school in October for my paralegal, which very glad to say that as of February, I finished. And not only did I finish, but I finished about 2 months early. That has been amazing. And what's even more amazing is I bagged a job at a law firm, a great law firm. And I start on March 21st. And I'm super, super excited about that. I'm very proud of myself for accomplishing that. And to know me is to know that I struggle with being proud of myself. It's something that I've been working on through therapy, and it's that struggle between what I've always learned as a Christian, which is to be humble and modest. And I think I internalized that so much to the point where I just kind of didn't like allow myself to celebrate myself at all. And I've through the years like learned to downplay, and it's not that I was ever taught to do that. It's just kind of like how I internalize things. So working through therapy and learning that it's okay to pat myself in the back and be proud of myself has been a journey for me. But I'm doing it, y'all, and I'm healthily doing it. And I'm really just proud of being able to be happy about this accomplishment. And it got me to thinking, right? It got me to thinking about how my life has been a constant flow of transition for many reasons. And I think that's just natural for everybody. I think we all go through transition like that's just the human condition, right? Like, we go through changes and we have to transition. I was not always so great at transition, though. I was in fact horrible at transitions. And I mean that in the most literal way. As a kid growing up, we house hopped a lot, we moved a lot, and as an adult I recognized that my parents had financial struggles. They had 4 children. Job markets were changing. Cost of living was changing. We grew up in Connecticut, and that's a pretty expensive state to live in, and certainly expensive if you have an entire family, which my mom and my dad did. So we moved a lot, and that meant for a while I was in and out of different schools in a very short span of time. Fortunate to say that by the time I hit 2nd grade, I stayed in the same school from elementary through middle, and then went on to high school. But throughout my life, there's just always like this constant flux of change happening in my life. I thought, that I was handling it in a very normal way. And it wasn't until I went through therapy that I learned that I was compartmentalizing and I wasn't necessarily handling transition in a really great way, which was to be expected because I hadn't learned the coping tools that I needed to learn how to transition. When I think back to like having my daughter at 18 and the transition there, I was like bombarded with postpartum depression, and that lasted for a while. And amidst that, I was in a shelter, house hopping between friends, family. And then I moved to Philadelphia with no one but my best friend and my kid, and adjusting to life there, and ending old relationships from back home and starting new ones very foolishly in Philly. It was just like And then new jobs, new education, all these different things, learning how to live in a new environment. It wasn't graceful at all. So through this period of my life, because I've been more in touch with myself, who I am, and being honest about those things too, because it took me a long time to really be honest with myself about who I am. Going to therapy has really taught me how to identify things, sit with my feelings, communicate properly to my husband about how I'm feeling. And I'm truly grateful for that, because this has made this process of transition and this leg of my life a lot easier than I anticipated. So I'm basically coming with these gems. Transition is not a graceful thing. Some people look like they're transitioning through things gracefully, and there may even be some who are artfully mastering that. I'm here to say I'm not that person. I'm not that person. I aspire to be that person one day, but I'm not that person right now. But what I will say is that I'm very grateful for the gracefulness of learning how to use my coping skills properly. It's been incredibly tough these last couple of weeks looking for a new home. Very blessed that we got one. I'm grateful to Jehovah that we do have a new place to move to. My youngest son was diagnosed with level 1 autism and ADHD like his older brother, and that's just been a transition to try to get him what he needs. Me going through the process of interviewing in a very short span of time to get a paralegal position to help kind of put myself in a better position to help support my family. Not that my husband isn't doing an excellent job, because he is, but I just feel like now it's my time to contribute back for everything my husband's done to hold us down, especially when I was out of work. And that transition has not been pretty. It's put my resiliency to the test. It's put my faith to the test. I've just been under a lot of tests. But on the flip side of that, something that I've been able to do now is to appreciate, which is not something that I would have necessarily been able to do so soon, just a couple months ago. But I'm allowing myself to acknowledge, like, hey, yeah, this isn't easy, and this may not look as fluid as you want it to, but you're doing it. You're doing it, you're living it, and you're putting into practice the things that you learn. And I'm really glad that therapy is working for me to the point where I'm able to implement these things in a much more healthy way. And I'm grateful for that. So I'm just here to tell those who are struggling with transition because it doesn't look a certain way, or you feel like you should be more graceful about it, like, throw that out the window. It's okay to struggle. I mean, struggle, I'm not saying it's okay to struggle, but it's a natural part of life. And it's okay if you're not doing things in the most, aesthetically pleasing way. That's just not reality, and your feelings and your emotions are valid. If I can encourage anyone to do anything, it's go to therapy. Therapy is dope, but I also acknowledge that therapy is a privilege and comes with having access to funds and insurance, and that's not something that everyone has. But if you do have that privilege, utilize it, and utilize it for good. I think so many of us benefit from having someone help us kind of work through traumas that we don't even know we're carrying, work through better cognitive thought processes to help us kind of get to a better space in our life. There's so many avenues and ways to educate ourselves now that we didn't have necessarily when we were younger, especially my generation, who came up in the 80s, late 80s, 90s, and early 2000s. I even think, if I could stress even more to like men, like y'all take advantage of this too. I'm so grateful that I have a husband who was willing to learn, to support through this process. It just makes a world of difference for me, for him as an individual, but for us as a unit. Communication, I used to hear that communication was key all the time, but until you are communicating openly and effectively, it kind of, it's like, it's only going to be as dope as the energy that you put behind it. So invest in your mental and your emotional health. That's the message here. Invest in your mental and emotional health, and understand that you don't have to be perfect at life. It's not possible. But what you can do is learn how to deal with the changes of life in a healthy way. Whatever you're transitioning through, whether it is your job, whether it's this pandemic, whether it is grief, loss, birth, whatever it is that you're transitioning through, please remember, that it did not happen overnight for you to get into whatever situation you were that you're trying to transition into. And it's not going to happen overnight that you're going to learn how to miraculously cope and deal with everything in a perfect way. The most important thing is that you are trying to cope and you're trying to do it in a healthy way. This has been definitely a different journey for me not to have the crux of food to rely on because of the surgery that I had as a disordered eating person, as a person who emotionally eats, as a person who was once a binge eater. It's different to not have that crux or be a smoker anymore. You know, it's like I have no choice at this point but to rely on prayer and the things that I'm learning in therapy. And some days I feel like I'm mastering it beautifully and other days I'm not. No matter what day it is, it's okay. So that's my chat. That's my talk for the day. I hope you guys weren't expecting anything like super deep. I felt like it was on my heart, it was on my mind, and I wanted to share it. So I did. And I hope that it can be helpful to somebody who might kind of be sitting on the fence about therapy, who might be feeling down about how they're handling their transitions right now. Don't buy too much into social media and what you see. People are only showing you like a snapshot, a fragment of their lives on the internet. And I feel like that goes without saying, but I feel like so many of us still need that reminder. So I'm here to just remind you of that. Like, real life is happening outside of Instagram, YouTube, and whatever other social media that you utilize. And what it may seem like, you know, people can curate these beautifully aesthetic stories as they talk about their depression. But like, where we're at, depression is ugly. And so are struggles that are happening in our lives. And it's okay if you don't have a cute anecdote to go along with it or, you know, a cute soundtrack to go along with it. Like, you're in the trenches. It's raw and it's real. And it's okay to show yourself that grace, even if nobody else is willing to do so. I hope this chat has been somewhat encouraging to you. I'll be back. I definitely have things I want to talk about. It's just that my life has been hectic, like I said, transitioning, and I haven't really had the time to sit down and record as much as I would like to. But now that school is finished, I won't make any promises because I'm getting back to work and, well, not getting back to work. I'm going into a new job, and that's now transitioning from part-time to full-time. So I might be gone for a while. But you know what? I'm perfectly okay with that because social media is going to survive whether I'm there or not. So I just hope that if you rock with me and you follow me, like, you can be patient as I'm transitioning through the many different stages of my life and know that when I'm ready to talk or chat, I will be back here to talk about those things because I think it's important to do that, to show up for myself, but also show up for people who cannot show up for themselves yet. Until next time, y'all. Bye.